Hello again, and welcome to the next installment of Scrutiny. This is Chapter 3. Hannah is exhausted. As always, I am your narrator, Zoe, and listener discretion is advised. Well, you can call me Andrew, lucky lady, and I am your handler. His smile softened, closing so that she could see and commit his face to memory. It was a square face, weathered and looked as though it had seen as much sun as any of her kin. Though he was dressed like a farmer, she doubted he had ever done such a thing. The calluses on his knuckles and the thickness of his hands reminded her of a mercenary. Andrew, she nodded. I thought Brenna. No, she's not in charge of your division. Hanah nodded slowly, taking in each word, then waited for more of an explanation. Hanah scowled when she realized she would receive none. She'd read their contract 6 ways to Sunday. She knew that they owned the body of her property, most of the structures on it, but had no rights to her, nor her animals, nor the minerals, or the groundwater. They could not evict them, but they could come onto the property to do things when they wanted to. They could build or release weird critters onto it. She was allowed to defend herself, the main house, and her animals. She couldn't extend her crops, but she had 5 fields she could rotate between. She'd been careful to stay within previously planted fields this year, and while she wasn't allowed to go hunting on her property anymore, tracking a pest was well within her rights. She'd done nothing that needed handling, but Hanah knew she needed to be careful here. What do you need, Andrew? Hanah asked. Oh, just for that little corpse and to introduce myself, he answered. The bees will have that, and you will receive a generous payment to your account for all the trouble. Hanah pursed her lips. Confliction rose up in her. What is it? She asked, glancing back at the animal. One of the bees brushed past her. As they did, the black mesh that made up the face of their suit tilted towards her a bit, giving her the impression they were sizing her up. She didn't try to stop them from taking it. The bee walked back to the space to Andrew's right. She was able to see the large yellow Z printed on the back of the suit. Andrew continued. Just so you know, there'll be 2 more upstairs renovating your bookshelf. Don't be alarmed by them. Hanah blinked, curling her lips into her mouth to keep herself from protesting. Don't worry, I told them not to move any of your kids' books. You've got quite the collection in there. The house was supposed to be off limits. The one piece of property she fought to retain, the family homestead, built by her own great-grandfather. I thought you couldn't do anything to the house. Andrew heard her question and carefully considered it. You must be referring to Article 17. The home and structure remain within your possession and cannot be taken or altered by Zyko. However, in Article 16, we establish that Zyko can alter anything within the boundaries of your property if it's for the continuation or betterment of the area. Your family is now the warden of Zyko's interest within these boundaries. You do understand that, don't you, Hanah? Hanah didn't. She didn't know what to say. This hadn't been expressly stated, and she hadn't put that together. She realized after the signing, only by way of her mom pointing it out, that her family could never lose this property, which she had thought was a good thing. But she had neglected to think of how much Zyko might impact the land in the meantime. Would their crops die? Would the property even be habitable? Would they be sucked dry? She had tried to protect them, but this was dooming. He examined her for a long moment, perhaps waiting for her to say something. Finally, we'll be in touch. He turned and walked away. Then he made a motion with his arms like he was tossing a basketball over his head. And do study, lucky lady. You do not want to fail these tests. He didn't turn around. He just kept walking towards the back of the barn. I don't want to take your tests. I don't have any interest in furthering this relationship. Hanah knit her brow and ran forward, hoping to catch them. Andrew laughed, but he didn't turn around. They rounded the barn. She followed. By the time she got to the back, they were gone. Not a ripple in the cornfields, not a press in the mud. Their footsteps just stopped. Fuck! She shook her head in bewilderment. It occurred to her that there were 2 up the stairs that she could talk to right now. She turned and jogged back up the slightly muddy path to her front door. She scarcely paused to wipe her feet. Hanah threw open the double oak doors to the abandoned ground of her home. There was a foyer. To the left, her kitchen. To the right, a small sitting room. Directly in front of her was the stairs to the second floor. Up the stairs was her room and the rest of the bedrooms. She thundered up the steps and practically jumped into the first room to the right of the staircase. Her bedroom. She opened the doors and found no one inside. Her bookshelf remained undisturbed. "Hanah?" Her mother's voice drew her attention. Hanah turned to face her, and the woman's face whitened. "Oh no! What's happened?" She reached for her with a wild look. Hanah knit her brow, forgetting until she looked at her hands that she was covered with blood. "Oh, no, Mama, it's okay. It's not mine. Everyone's okay. I'm sorry." Though the carpeted stairs had muffled some of her steps, she was sure the noise she'd made running inside had disturbed the woman immensely. Lydia's face morphed from concern to that of both anger and wretched sorrow. "Why would you do that to me?" she demanded, flying from the room before Hanah had the chance to answer. Hanah reached for her, but did not follow. The woman would receive no comfort from her daughter's presence, and Hanah knew that well. Hanah returned to her bookcase. She needed to clean up, but after that she wanted a book to cool her nerves. She probably wouldn't see her mom for the rest of the night, so she would need to do something else for human connection. Her cell phone buzzed. Ophelia's tone. The girl always texted at just the right times. Hanah shook off the moment with her mother. She walked to the bathroom a short distance down the hall. She paused at her sister Mary's room on the way. It was odd how much she missed her brothers. Passing this room always made more grief than passing Sean's, which was just across the hall. Maybe because his door was always shut, as it was now, and Mary's always open, where it was also now shut. She was still alive, Mary, away at college, studying to be a biologist, brain surgeon, or something insane like that. Hanah moved beyond the room and into the bathroom. The room was small like all the others on this floor, designed to be functional and nothing else. Hanah scrubbed at her hands and face. The blood was persistent. It seemed to take a lifetime to finally get it all off. She supposed it had something to do with the layers of grime caked into her every pore. She would have to change her clothes as well. They were filthy as sin. With clean hands, Hanah reached for her phone. Ophelia texted a long, rambling speech about wishing she wasn't at work, but at least she wasn't back home, but at least she had dinner, and she wished she could have eaten dinner at home with them. That made Hanah smile. Ophelia lived elsewhere, but she visited frequently and had taken to calling at home from time to time. Hanah didn't mind, and weirdly neither did Lydia. As standoffish as she was with Hanah, she was still welcoming to guests. Hanah pushed her lips forward and sucked on the air. She typed a quick reply, telling her she was welcome to come by after work. Immediately, Ophelia sent back a thumbs up, followed by a candelabra and a purple devo. Hanah smirked and rolled her eyes. Why not? She sent back another thumbs up and tucked her phone into her back pocket, ignoring the series of tone alerts that followed. She went into her bedroom. Her room was designed like most of the others, except for Jamie's. There was built-in shelving, and then a desk attached. The drawers were filled with other people's stuff these days. She'd gotten many gifts over the years, dozens of things she really didn't want. Hanah sighed. To the left was the only thing in the room she'd actually picked out and purchased for herself, a set of oak chest of drawers. She peeled off the first layer of her clothes and felt the cat's skull pressing in her pocket. She paused. She felt a little silly having forgotten it there. It wasn't like she'd picked up a fun rock or something. Hanah held the skull in her palm and looked at it for a time. She felt a very deep connection to it, though it had only been dead for a couple of days. The skull had been completely licked clean. There were gnaw marks along the orbital bone. In reality, the thing's head wasn't a lot bigger than a cat's. She banished the thought, then put the cat on her dresser. She would need to process it another time. She grabbed a shirt and a clean pair of pants out of her dresser. She crossed the room to grab a robe and caught a look of herself in the mirror. Her curls were matted. She knew, but she couldn't actually see it. They were smoothed down on top, so they looked contained, but underneath they were getting pretty bad. She needed to spend some real time on them. She bit the inside of her lip. She considered the time on her phone. It was past 9:30, nearing 10. Her friend got off at 10 p.m. She would probably need about an hour to go home and get herself ready and get her supplies. Hanah figured she probably had time to start the process at least. She definitely wouldn't have time later, or the energy. She grabbed her hairbrush and the detangler, then went towards her bedroom door. As she did, a knock sounded. She paused, then opened the door. 2 bees stood shoulder to shoulder, carrying the tools they would need to renovate the bookshelf. "Well, hello there." They didn't respond. "Can I help you with something?" Still no response. "So I'm just supposed to let you into my room? My private space? Nay, my sanctuary? Really?" They didn't so much as move. The hairs on her body stood on end. She suppressed the shiver and offered a playful laugh. "Fine. Have at it, boys." She stepped to one side, gesturing for them to come in. They stepped almost mechanically into the small space. The mostly black Tyvek suits they wore covered their entire bodies, even their faces. She couldn't see anything personal about them, not even their genders. It fully dehumanized them. She didn't like the implications of it. She tried not to think too hard about why they had to wear those suits. Hanah walked down the hall and into her bathroom. Knowing there were strangers in her house, regardless of the contract they were under, prompted Hanah's fingers to turn the lock on her brass doorknob. Safely locked in, Hanah put the bees from her mind and focused instead on her hair. There came an immediate itch when she picked up her brush. There used to be laughter when she did this. There used to be joy. She could still feel her dad's hands running through her locks, tugging at the curls, talking about whatever silly thing. Hanah went to her phone and pulled up a podcast, a Nature Conservancy podcast that explored the world of birds. She'd been listening to birds by herself since she was a kid. This episode was about the great horned owl's migration pattern. It snatched her interest immediately. By the end of the episode, her hair was all but worked clean, and Ophelia was calling her. "Hey!" the girl sang, brightening up Hanah's world. "I grabbed us some coffees and donuts from the gas station. I gotta go home and wash the filth off. Then I'm coming to you. Okay? Hanah?" Hanah sighed into the receiver. I'm about to get in the shower, too." Ophelia pouted outwardly. "Talk to me till I get home, though?" "Yeah, I'm doing my hair right now," she answered, working the homemade conditioner into her roots. "Anything fun happen at work?" Hanah popped the brush into her mouth and listened to Ophelia's spiel. It wasn't interesting, but it felt good to hear her talk. She chattered a million miles a minute, filling the woman's ears with the warmth of friendship. Hanah worked a particularly stubborn match with her hands. It finally came apart enough she could work it with her comb. Hanah winced, relieved she was almost done. She pulled one more time at the very last knot. A particularly sharp tug reminded her immediately of her father. For a moment, his loving voice filled up the room, melodically teasing her tender head, telling her she was lucky she didn't have a tighter knit like his. Hanah pushed her lips into a thin line and tuned back into Ophelia's words. "So I just told him just because you think you own the world doesn't mean you do. Get back to the back of the line with your golf membership having ass." She giggled fiendishly to herself. "You told him, love," Hanah said, smiling. She'd heard about this particular customer before. If Hanah didn't know any better, the old man was flirting with her. He didn't say this to Ophelia. The girl would have balked in disbelief, most certainly. Hanah tucked her hair into a bonnet to let the conditioner set in while she bathed her body. Ophelia sighed. Hanah took the tone of her voice as an indicator to turn the shower on. "Well, I'm inside now. I'm going to take a shower and I'll call you back when I head your way." "Okay, love." Once the call ended, her podcast resumed. With that episode drawing to her close, her music took over. It put on a nice, smooth playlist of sounds of rain superimposed over docile tones. The occasional rumbling thunderbolts slithered through the music. Hanah's eyes drooped. She wondered if she could just cancel on Ophelia and go to bed instead. Then she remembered the bees in her room. She had no idea how long the project would take. Hanah pulled the bonnet off of her head and relished the warm spray finally soaking into her cloud. She sighed and let her head fall back. The phone rang, and she jumped, remembering that she was in this world. She shook off the sleepiness and let the call ring out. Ophelia would either call her back in a minute or just show up. Ophelia waited a few minutes, then called again. Hanah finished her shower and answered the second call before it rang out. Ophelia wailed dramatically into the phone and broke down laughing. I could have died. Hanah laughed back, taking her time, patting her hair dry before she tucked it into a fresh bonnet. Then she dressed herself. She asked, "You on the way?" "Yes, I ran all the way to my car, and then I called you again." "What if there was a monster waiting for me in the darkness, Hanah? What if?" Hanah felt a fondness well up inside of her. "Oh, then I guess you would have gotten eaten. But rest assured, I would have hunted it down, eaten the monster in turn, then used its stomach contents to clone you and reanimate you." Hanah promised, holding back her laughter so she could hear Ophelia's response. Ophelia's mirthy voice replied, "Wait, you think it would have eaten me? What kind of monsters do you have in this swamp?" Hanah chuckled. She finished tying her shoes and marched down the stairs. She noted that the shelves in her room that were always there were gone, the books neatly stacked to one side. The bees were working in tandem, putting up the new shelves. "Be careful with those books. Most of them are older than I am," Hanah warned. "What are you talking about?" Ophelia asked. The bees didn't so much as look at Hanah. She waited for a reply, but none came. "What are you talking about?" Ophelia pestered. "I'll explain later." Hanah dismissed. She had things she needed from that room. Ophelia hummed discontentedly but didn't press for details. She reset and went back to chattering about her day. She was telling Hanah the same story about the grumpy customer trying to cut in line. Hanah grabbed a backpack from her closet that was already packed in case she was going to do something with Ophelia at night. Ready, Hanah walked down and out of the house. The lights were out. She assumed her mother had done it. She sat down on the top stair of her porch. The animals were all bedded down again. Most of the dogs slept out there with them, but one of them padded over to her from her usual spot on the porch. In the dim, it was hard to tell the two shepherds apart. Hanah dug her fingers into his coat and scratched at the curls. Abernathy had a curlier coat than his brother Rex, but both dogs were about the same. She couldn't be sure which one she was petting now. The dogs were kind to each other, but at night, they were pretty strict with their territories. These two slept on the porch, the others in the barn. She didn't know why. It wasn't her place to question animal politics. They did their job, they did them well. That's what she cared for. She scratched the dog's mane until headlights pulled down their driveway, and then he burst into barking. Hanah realized she should have told her mom she was expecting company. The dog broke from her grasp and started howling to alert everyone. Ophelia, having fallen silent while she drove, spoke up again. "Ah, geez. I woke up Rex, huh?" You know him. He stays at the ready. But I'm gonna hang up, though. I gotta tell Mom not to worry." She stood up and hung up before Ophelia responded. She hurried inside and met her mom at the top of the stairs, looking enraged and ready to fight. "It's all good, Mom. It's just Ophelia. She's off work and wants to go out. I'm going." "It's late, Hanah." Her mom's voice was mingled between worried and angry. "I know. You should go to bed. My daughter shouldn't go out in the middle of the week." "Where are you going to?" Irritated, Hanah snipped. "I'm going to a bar in Harlow," a lugubrious little town several counties over. The woman looked incensed and shook her head. "Hanah," she scolded. "You can't go to Harlow. It's not. I'm an adult. You can't forbid me from going places." Lydia paused. "Hanah, it isn't safe. You can't." Hannah's anger spiked. "God damn it, Mom. I'm going." Hanah turned before she could argue more and ran out of the house. She jumped into the car and told Ophelia, "Go before she comes out and yells at us." Ophelia peeled out of the drive, spraying rocks behind them. As expected, her irate mother made it down the stairs and was now standing on the deck yelling at them. They couldn't hear her over the rumble of Ophelia's shitty old beast. "So where are you taking me?" Ophelia answered simply, "My house." Hanah was surprised. The last few times they'd run off to some obscure abandoned property that Hanah had no idea existed. Then she'd whip out the Ouija board and start in on her white girl shit. It was pretty fun, actually. Hanah never really believed in any of that. Her mom absolutely did. Her dad had a weird religion all his own that did not expressly ban that sort of thing, but it certainly did not condone any commercially produced, brightly colored products. Really? Ophelia answered, "Yeah, I thought we could use a night in." Hanah felt herself genuinely smile for the first time all day. It was a tired smile, a grateful one. "But," Ophelia postured, "you have to get a donut with me in the morning before I take you home." Hanah smiled but felt an immediate stab of concern. Hanah drew out her very real discomfort for the humor of it. "Oh, fine. As long as that creep isn't working." "Oh, you mean the only employee?" Ophelia giggled. "Now hush. Sybil isn't creepy." "I did not say he was. I called him a creep. That does not necessarily mean he's creepy, just quiet and..." I tried not to say creepy, but the fact of the matter was she found the baker to be a bit unsettling. He was tall. Taller than a person should be, with the width of his hips and shoulders, anyway. He stood like some winged beast, head forward, black eyes burrowing. He rarely spoke, unless he was at work, and then he was always smiling, and only spoke what he had to say. Hanah couldn't see past the fake. She'd met him a few times before Ophelia had come to town, but since becoming friends with the outsider, she became friends with Sybil. Or some form of acquaintance, her feelings towards him had never changed. He was quite a bit older than both of them, which really didn't sit right with Hanah, personally. There were a lot of old men in Ophelia's life, making sure she got fed and housed. I had tried more than once to tell her it wasn't safe, but... "You're thinking quite a bit tonight," Ophelia commented. The road to Brunswick, the actual hamlet where Ophelia lived, was a mostly straight stretch, flaked by cornfields until the last mile, which had not come. Hanah was thoughtful tonight. Ophelia was right. "You good?" the girl questioned, glancing at her passenger seat. Hanah considered the question. Was she? Yeah, she lied. She could hear it in her own voice, but if Ophelia heard it, she didn't comment. They drove in silence until the last mile, when the corn broke and an endless ink swallowed the road. Ophelia made a haunted noise, but didn't try to strike up a conversation. Hanah knew there was a floodplain currently swamped in growing cattails, which gave way to the massive lake. But none of this was visible after dark. Only the reflectors shining back their headlights kept them on the road. They drifted upwards. Brunswick was built into a mudflat in the water. It had been claimed a long time ago. Concrete and cobblestone came together to support large stone buildings. Nearly every house rested on a concrete pillar foundation, lifted for when the rains came, and wouldn't cease. The water wouldn't end. Ophelia turned into town, going down the one road, around the houses she liked to look at. Hanah would never tell her, but she wished she wouldn't take this road. Going around the back meant they crossed the undertaker's mansion. It was one of the few houses not built on concrete stilts, but directly into the ground. It even had a basement, which was reserved for the hilltop houses nearby, not the ones with a lakeside view. Something about this house had always unsettled her. It wasn't the rather lugubrious cemetery that stretched out on either side, but rather the haunting hollowness of the house itself. Hanah swallowed up her fear. Mercifully, Ophelia didn't stop and coo at the masterful architecture tonight. Instead, she just rolled past the house and turned left, away from the lake and towards the main drag. She parked on the far side of the road, across the street from where her house was located. Hanah moaned to herself. It felt like a very long way to walk. An Apocalypse Keeper production.
Thank you so much for tuning into that last episode. I appreciate you. And if you appreciate that this podcast exists, please run over to our Patreon and give me money, because I am a poor bitch who desires to do this for her living. That would make my heart smile. And that's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you. Goodbye. Oh, tune in next week for Chapter 3. Ophelia cares. Because she does. She's got a heart of gold, that one.